Hello, thanks for joining us. You have found the session titled Findings from the 5-Year Scientist in Residence Partnership. We look forward to sharing the results of what we found through this really unique model that embraces outdoor learning in 2 neighboring school districts in Southeast Wisconsin. I am Carly Hintz, the Associate Director of Education at River Edge Nature Center, and I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Rachel Race, and I'm a scientist in residence in Cedarburg and formerly in West Bend for the past 2 years.
Our goals for this session are to share the approach of the Scientist in Residence Partnership, to highlight the findings through evaluation data from the last 5 years, specifically in West Bend, to explore the challenges and the opportunities of this partnership, and overall to integrating outdoor learning, and to share the impact of the Scientist in Residence through a testimonial from one of the teachers in West Bend. So we created a animated video or a Powtoon to help kind of describe what a day in the life of a scientist in residence looks like. And we thought it'd be a great way to give you a sense for just what exactly Rachel and her predecessors have been doing in the schools. Hope you enjoyed that. So you can see it's a really all-encompassing job that the scientist in residence has to do. And just to give a little bit of background, River Edge Nature Center is over 50 years old. And some of the partnerships we've had with our neighboring school districts are really long-standing, in particular with the West Bend School District and the Cedarburg School District. Before the scientist in residence, we would host professional development, we would do school outreach, and of course we would do our traditional on-site programming. And our goal was always to help empower and embolden teachers to take what they were experiencing at River Edge and bring their students outdoors at their school green spaces. But you know, despite all of our best efforts, it really wasn't until we embedded a full-time position, the scientists in residence, into the district and integrated them into the district systems and practices that we've really seen incredible traction and success in being able to build the confidence of teachers to take their learning outside. So this map just shows you the geographic proximity of River Edge to West Bend and Cedarburg. And those are our two really largest school districts that are the closest. But of course, there's also Saukville, Grafton, and lots of other schools, Sheboygan, in the Sheboygan area that we hope to expand to in the future. So I'm going to pass it to Rachel to talk a little bit about sort of the model we use for the empowering teachers.
So the empowerment model was this idea of we have 5 years time in the school district, and in the beginning is forming those relationships. Relationships are forming the whole 5 years, but in the beginning, being able to connect with teachers and being a mentor to them, as well as modeling lessons. So the I do part is that the scientist in residence is working on showing how the lessons are taught, and then that models it for the teachers to feel confident to, in years to come, to do the we do model. So the we do model really practices on both of us co-teaching. So working with the teachers, sometimes the teachers feel get something, or just the you do model is that the teachers are doing it. So I had plenty of teachers that were super excited to do it on their own, and they jumped in and led it on their own without the scientists and residents coming in and spending time with them and being part of that lesson. And then I had teachers that were like, we're super excited to lead this, but can you just be there as an observer? That way you can help critique it, give us ideas, or remind us if we need something to be, brought to the forefront while we're teaching. So the model was really, is really still a great model because I'm still doing it in Cedarburg, but in West Bend, it was really fun to meet the teachers in year 4 and 5 that had worked with the past scientists to like to do, and what part I could take in that, whether it was just bringing some lesson bins to them and then they would lead it out on their own. So the idea is when we first work with the teachers is that we're doing that lesson, and then the teachers are going to feel confident and to be able to do part of it on their own, and then eventually that they would be doing it on their own. So I'm going to pass it back to Carly. I don't know if I missed anything in there, but the model is still working great, and it's a great way to work alongside teachers and build that relationship.
No, that's great. Thanks, Rachel. And just to footnote that the empowerment model really came from, that vision came from the teachers, and where we'd been modeling outdoor education, environmental education in the past through River Edge programs. The difference is that, I think, is that really the frequency of interactions that the scientists in residence has, just their presence in the schools, and really building those relationships, like you said, Rachel, having it be really easy for teachers to know where to go to get answers and to get help and feel supported with their outdoor integrated learning. So through our evaluation, we've done pre and post surveys almost every year from the start to finish of the partnership. We host an annual focus group with the teachers to help kind of deepen what we're learning from those surveys. And we've also done interviews with administrators to help understand our impact on a district level. And through that data, we've learned a whole lot, but I'm just going to pick out a few key pieces to point out today. So we have these lovely one-packed impact summaries. Sorry, that came out wrong. And I took a snippet of that here on this slide, just to show you some of the big impacts. So over 38,000 students that were taught outside, either at their school green space or at the school forest. West Bend School District in particular has one 26 acre, I think it is, school forest. Am I wrong? Sorry.
36.
36. I shorted them by 10. My bad. That's like a whole prairie taken out. But 36 acres, around 2,400 teachers, and around 2,300 community members. So those are parent chaperones, and really just those numbers itself are compelling to know that none of that would have really existed without this partnership. In terms of measuring the empowerment model that Rachel mentioned, we really focus in on confidence and teachers' actual, in addition to their confidence and feeling supported, how often did they actually bring their students outside beyond working with the scientists and residents? And that's a metric that we are continuing to monitor as the partnership formally has sunsetted over that 5-year time, so that we can try and determine whether or not those efforts were sustainable. The time will tell. Also, just pointing out, this picture on the right is one of our former scientists and residents modeling a winter activity. So teachers really emphasized wanting to have ideas and support for bringing their students outside during winter when temperatures are definitely a barrier, clothing can be a barrier. Yeah, and so it's kind of scary sometimes for teachers to bring their kids outside in general, but in particular in the winter. So this lesson is a good example of the I do demonstrating. Okay, so our first sort of data point is familiarity with outdoor learning resources. And we asked teachers at the beginning of the partnership in 2015 and at the end in the spring of 2020 what their familiarity was with their school green space, the outdoor classroom, which is, again, that school forest, and the curriculum that's been developed to take their lessons from inside out. Where we saw the greatest change was in curriculum adapted for the outdoors. So if you can see, teachers indicated that they were very close to not at all familiar with any curriculum that had been developed prior to the scientists and residents partnership. So these are either specific lessons that they were already doing in their classroom and are adapted for the outdoors, or things like brain breaks and quick activities that they can just move outside if needed. As of last spring, teachers indicated that they were much, much, much more familiar. And a little bit later, Rachel will talk about why that was successful and how she was able to work with the school district to put lessons in a place where teachers had easy access and can turn to basically turn ownership right over to them. But to expand on this concept, I'm going to pass it back to Rachel.
So I'm going to read the quote. The scientist in residence came over to our school to plan with us. She sent several emails and communicated very effectively with our unit to plan activities. So a lot of teachers really appreciate when things perfectly align with their curriculum. So when teachers were excited about something or had these big ideas, we would sit down, we would talk about what they wanted to do outside, or they'd say, we really want to do something with water. And we want to do it outside. So we would have lots of communication going back and forth. I would come meet with the whole team, usually if it was like a first grade team, and then we talk about ideas. I'd come back again usually and introduce, what lesson I had created, and then we talk about when we wanted to try to do this lesson, and then teachers would jump in wherever they felt comfortable. So it was really about that relationship building and being consistent and being able to offer all those opportunities for teachers to engage and collaborate with the scientists and residents. So I love this quote because it's exactly what we did. It's just shows exactly the communication that was, from the beginning, and how thorough it was to make teachers feel comfortable with the scientists and residents, and in turn, eventually we're comfortable with teaching lessons outside.
Thanks. All right, this next graph is just showing that of the lessons that were taught outside, who at the end of the partnership, who was the primary leader? And as you can see, over half of the teachers who responded said that they were empowered to lead their lessons outside. The other half, or a little bit more than half, said that they co-led their lessons with the scientists and residents, and or with other teachers. There's just a couple classes that, or a couple examples, responses here that say that they either were supposed to be leading it, but probably plans changed because of COVID. We can assume that it was completely led by the scientists and residents, or that it was led in specific instances by parent volunteers or another teacher. So our takeaway from this question is that the empowerment model worked, and depending on when the scientists and residents met with a particular teacher, which those focus areas kind of changed as the years went on, depending on where they were on that empowerment scale, they were building towards independence and feeling confident to do this on their own. So to give you a sense for what these lessons or what the content actually looked like, this graph or this table is just showing the lesson lineup that was designed by the teachers. So oftentimes Rachel would go to the teachers, say a department meeting with kindergarten teachers and say that, ask them what ideas they had for bringing lessons outside. And I believe I'll let you expand on this, Rachel, but but from my understanding, it was very much like a back and forth co-developing of finding gaps in the curriculum and opportunities where outdoors can be integrated. But in other cases, I think it's also just out of the box thinking about what lessons could be taken outside. So I'll let you expand.
Okay, so so these are example lessons, and these were lessons that were specifically created for the outdoor classroom at West Bend. And again, it's a 36-acre school forest, and usually the whole grade level at a school would come out. So we would have at least 4 rotations that the teachers would be a part of. And then some of these lessons had many rotations, so more than they could do while they were at the outdoor classroom. So they were able to take it back with them and then do it in their green space as well. So starting with the idea of, teachers would say, hey, we really want to go to the school forest in spring. Great. What are you guys learning about? Plants and animals. Awesome. So specifically for first grade, they did plants. So we had a station, there was a plant relay, so they were active. There was draw a plant, that was another station, and they were in the prairie. So they were able to draw and make observations. Trying to remember, I think we just did an observation hike through the woods was another station for first grade. So it was really incorporating all the different areas of curriculum that needs to be covered, and using the environment to bring that to life. So Native American for 4th grade was late winter. there were teachers that had told me that they went out there when it was snowing, like so hard, it was so magical, but it was really good for the kids to be able to be doing these lessons that were fire building, tree uses, why certain trees were important, where they found their food, how to animal track, and there's a couple other ones too, but it's just really cool to be able to bring all of those lessons into a tangible form instead of sitting in the classroom and reading about it or watching a video about it. So the teachers really loved going to the school forest because the kids were so hands-on. They were so excited to just be out there. One of my other favorite things was 5th grade was soils, and they have 2 different creeks that are different creeks on both sides of the school, and they were really excited about using those. So we did a soil lesson and a river lesson. And then my 5th year, so the last year of the partnership, I was in the hallway and a kid said, I really liked being out in the river last year. Are we going to do that again? Because they were a 6th grader. So I talked to the 6th grade teachers, and we were able to get a mini grant through River Edge for some gear to do some invasive species identification and removal. So the 6th graders now all get in the river as well. And that all sparked from a kid being super excited about remembering who I was and that they went in the river. So a lot of these, not only generated from teachers, but also came from students and their excitement and their ideas. I could go on forever about lessons that we created, but that's just a handful of the specific ones. And again, these were able to be used in their green space as well around school.
Cool. So every partnership has its challenges and opportunities. I'm going to let Rachel continue on and talk a little bit about what we ran into.
So the first one was communication. There was some misunderstandings about the intent of the partnership. So examples were it was only for science teachers. It was only for if you were going to go to the outdoor classroom and teach out there. And in the first couple of years of West Bend, they specifically targeted different grade levels. So when I came in the 4th year, the grade levels K through 4th were already targeted, already worked with. So then we kind of had this idea of like, let's open it to everybody. So the communication in the first couple of years just had some, misunderstandings about it. So we had to work through those. But the communication was really through relationship building and getting into the schools and talking to teachers, going to their staff meetings, going to their team meetings, emailing them, bringing up ideas, reminding them like, hey, you're a math teacher. Let's go out and draw a big clock on the sidewalk and do our lesson about time out there. Or maybe they were counting. Let's go out and find pine cones and acorns. So just being able to incorporate how different parts of the curriculum can go outside and utilize the space and the environment that they had around them, and being able to teach them not only the lesson at task, but also about the space around them. Yeah, that's the communication part, and I'll let Carly do change in leadership and staffing.
Yeah, that's really good. And I'll just add that we had continual throughout the process, we had continual sort of evaluation and a lot of touch points to try and hear from district leadership and from teachers and from the scientists and residents to identify what these challenges were so that we could quickly address them and move on. Yeah, so part of that really builds into this next one. And we all know the dangers of turnover and what happens when that champion teacher retires or that champion district administrator leaves. Well, all of that happened. We even had scientists and residents change over. So the position itself from year 4 to year 5, and the same thing in the Cedarburg School District. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the world. And so to help overcome some of that challenge and lost institutional memory, we built a really strong core group of individuals. So by having a leadership team at the district level, a stakeholder group, so a steering committee at the kind of broader level, and then fortunately the team at River Edge, our internal team, has remained the same throughout the partnership to help carry forward some of this information. But we've also had a really strong emphasis on artifacting and documenting as we go, so that it was really quick and easy to just onboard. I shouldn't say easy, but it was quicker, right? than it could have been to help onboard a new district administrator and a new scientist in residence.
So I'll jump into challenge number 3, which is developing trust among teachers takes time. 5 years, it seems like a long time, but with a big district, it takes a while to develop trust and gain knowledge of the scientists and residents with the teachers. So there's so much opportunity with this, though. Again, I was in staff meetings. I was collaborating with different groups in, different clubs, different teachers, and kind of found niches on where to build trust with teachers. And I utilized them by working, doing lessons and modeling that for other teachers. And maybe I was in a 3rd grade class, and then the other 3rd grade teachers would hear about it and they wanted to do it. So it was really a challenge to be able to get to know everybody, but building trust, once you got the trust of a couple of teachers that they were excited and this was a great opportunity, then the trust, started to be communicated through other avenues. So it's difficult for one person to learn and become have relationships with teachers that are, 5 elementaries. And I think there was 10 K4s that I worked with, and then the middle school and the intermediate school and the high school. So it's a lot for one person, but the cool part about that was that once the trust was developed, it just kind of snowballed effect. So it was pretty awesome. But again, with turnover, it's harder to be able to have those communications that were set in place before. So I'm going to go right into challenge number 4, which is making teaching supplies accessible in a large district is cumbersome. The scientists and residents before me had made these great kits for each class to come out to the outdoor classroom space, which is the school forest. There was only one kit, and again, there's 5 elementary schools. So if people wanted to go out in the same week, it was really on the scientists and residents to transfer stuff and be able to bring things back and forth. So we eventually had created this idea of making enough bins for 1 per grade level per school, so that the teachers could utilize the lessons that they don't do at the outdoor classroom at their school green space. And part of that was making maps, which was helpful for the teachers to be able to utilize that. So we made green space maps of where they can do different lessons, as well as having, instead of file folders or anything like that, we did a digital Google Team Drive that all the teachers had access to and could get into. I'm going to keep us on track, and I'm going to have Carly go on to the accessibility.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I just wanted to advance to the slide to show you that we asked teachers just what Rachel was saying is sort of how we could support their inside out kind of learning change. And so by putting those lessons on the shared drive, that was something they identified, providing professional development, creating those lesson bins, and then also providing funding for busing so that all elementary grades could visit the outdoor classroom free of parent charge and or of school level charge. That that was a huge way to remove a barrier to learning outside in their district, but also at their school green spaces. So we talked a lot about the partnership, the model, what we've learned, but these are just a few more overall highlights of that we really took away from the program in West Bend. Overall, we were able to make teachers feel more confident to take their students outside. We provided them with professional development. These were things like project learning tree, a keep and a leaf training, among others. We provided them with vetted lessons by grade level that directly connected to the curriculum that they were teaching, across subjects, not just in science, but also in math and reading and German studies, lots of different subjects. Again, organizing the materials was a huge piece to make it really easy to just grab and go outside when you need to. Providing teachers with trail maps to the school forest and for their schoolyards. It gives them ideas about where are great places to investigate, for example, bugs in this spot, or just reading over in this spot, things like that. Same thing, adapting activities for the green spaces. And then just a couple metrics. So increasing the amount of time that students were learning outside by about 23% throughout the partnership. Really seeing a documented increase of teachers feeling confident and comfortable actually leading their lessons outside by 49%. And then lastly, the partnership worked to improve the infrastructure, so the green space itself, by working with facility staff at the district level to help connect them with our land manager at River Edge, give ideas for how to best steward that school forest, how to best steward the school green spaces. It all works together to have quality learning environments that the teachers feel safe and free of poison ivy and free of other hazards that they can bring their students. So we wanted to just pause here very briefly to give you a second to catch up, because we went over a lot, and think about how could this model, the scientists in residence, or at least some aspect of it, maybe it's the professional development, maybe it's the empowerment model, maybe it's helping schools and teachers improve their own infrastructure. How does any of that or all of it impact your work with students, teachers, or schools? I'm just going to give 10 seconds to think about that.
You can also pause it because it's a recording and then play the rest of it, but come back for the rest of it.
Yeah. Great. So hopefully, our intent is that you're learning about this partnership and also taking away some nuggets for your own work. We're going to end here with Lindacato's story. She's a teacher in the West Bend School District, and she does a great job. The video is about 4 minutes long of just sort of embodying what this partnership is all about. So let me get this pulled up.
Hi, my name is Lindacato. I am a teacher in the West Bend School District. I teach a Head Start class of 4-year-olds, and I have a second role as a support person or mentor to teachers in our community-based 4K program. When I thought about making this video, initially I was going to look for a beautiful spot outdoors, but then I thought maybe it would make more sense if I made it in my classroom. And in particular, because my classroom has some challenges that made the idea of outdoor learning and connecting with nature a bit challenging. My classroom is in the basement of a building, surrounded primarily by asphalt, limited green space. And because I'm in the basement, I have no windows. So even though I understood the value of nature-based education, the value of outdoor experiences for young children, I really had a hard time taking all of that research and translating it into real experiences for my students. And that's where our scientist in residence came in. Our scientist in residence has impacted the program at so many levels. First of all, she advocated for funding with our leaders, our administrative team, funding that allowed us to purchase some tools that aided our children in exploring the outdoors, and also funding so that I could transport my children from our school to the outdoor classroom right within our district. Our scientist in residence also researched appropriate professional development opportunities for us. It can be tricky to find professional development opportunities geared specifically toward the early childhood classroom, but she was able to find one based right out of Stevens Point. That person came and did a workshop for our 3-year-old and 4-year-old teachers. And that in turn led to a broader understanding not only of what we could do outside, but how we could bring the outside into our classrooms. In addition to researching professional development opportunities from outside resources, our scientist in residence worked with some of our staff and did an in-house professional development session. And that was so amazing on many levels, primarily because it really empowered our teachers to think about what they could bring to the table, and then to become more self-sufficient in providing outdoor education experiences for their students. I really appreciated the fact that our scientist in residence was willing to come and co-teach with each of our teachers. She used the space that was around the classroom and helped us see what opportunities we had around our school buildings. And then she also, when we would go to specific sites, whether it was the walking trail in town or the outdoor classroom, would sit down and plan a lesson. And as time went on, it shifted from her leading the lesson to us co-teaching to now leaving me with a framework that I know I can implement independently. Finally, I just want to cite the fact that our scientist in residence, because of her enthusiasm and her knowledge, really challenged me to look at my environment and to notice the simple things that are so engaging for young children. We have dirt that we dug for worms. We have rocks. We looked under the rocks for bugs. We can jump in the puddle. We can watch the water as it runs across the asphalt and talk about where it came from and where it might be going. So the scientist in residence really taught me that despite the 4 walls and no windows in my classroom, that I can introduce my children to outdoor education, and that I can bring that bit of nature inside the classroom and continue those experiences within these 4 walls. So I am so grateful. Thank you.
Awesome. And I know that we've missed a lot. There's a lot that we did not cover. So I hope you enjoyed Linda's story. I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about the Scientist in Residence partnership. Please feel free to email myself or Rachel if there are additional questions that you'd like to continue the conversation. Thanks so much and keep doing your great work.